Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Now, the perfect opportunity for a Chevy Silverado tech tip here with Shane is we're going to talk a little bit about walleye, okay? And I know a lot of you that are out there that live on this side, maybe this isn't something that's on the forefront of your mind, but this is something to consider. If you get a nice flat day in the Columbia, maybe with a little chop, I always like a little chop when you're out there, to make a drive up to go do some walleye fishing on the Columbia this time of year can be just absolutely epic fishing. So if you were to go today, okay, conditions and all that stuff were in your favor, would you be trolling or would you be pulling plugs? Would you be jigging? All that, what would you do?
I'd be trolling, absolutely. Okay. And I would be trolling crawler harnesses, covering water. Some of the best way to find these buggers, as you know, the Columbia is kind of slack right now with it low. They're a little scattered out. And so covering ground, trolling those crawler harnesses while they're on this big feed is generally the most successful.
Okay, so let's say you're trolling, you're pulling worm harnesses, you find a bunch of fish either on electronics or with your rod tips, which are the funnest ones to use to find the fish, right? Is there a time that you would stop and start throwing jigs with worms on there or soft plastics or something like that, or is that too early in the year to think that way?
You know, it's not too early. People are already jigging them right now and catching fish. But because of them being scattered out, I pretty much stick with the troll, and they're gonna bounce around based on how the current adjusts out there. They may be in 35 foot of water and they slow down the current and they move out to 40, or vice versa. They're gonna kind of move in and out based on current speed, just like traveling lanes for salmon or steelhead.
Some places they can find or get the bait coming to them. They just, or is there temperature?
Where the feed's funneling and where they don't have to work real hard because they don't like a ton of current. So, you know, it's just finding that lane and just staying with that lane. And the biggest thing I do is change colors. You may go through and catch 4, 5, 6 fish off of one color and it quits getting bit, and all those fish are still there. Put on a different color and go through them again and you'll catch them. It's just something different. You see them.
I got to go back to that because there's, as you can imagine, I get lots of comments about all kinds of different things. Color. Now, if you were to run across that situation, say you're using this, let's get a shot with that Kershaw Tech Cam if we can. Hildebrandt, of course, Yakima bait products. You got the Hammer Time here, which is my personal favorite because I always like the big blade because of the vibration, the thump, and it's just where my comfort zone is. If you're using this, let's just say this perfect, it's actually a perfect color. So is this one too, by the way. Yeah. What would you change to? Would you make it bright? If you're using these brighter ones, I guess I'd call them bright. Would you go to a darker or something smaller? What would you kind of change to?
So I'm a big fan of running darker colors to start with, and I will look at stuff like this.
Oh, yeah. That's the finesse line.
And you can go, and this finesse line is one of my favorites. I think a lot of times it's overlooked based on what the size of food they're feeding on. That's that plays a lot with walleye, is kind of matching the hatch more or less. If you've got small little shad running down the river right now.
By the millions.
By the millions, and they're little guys. You try to match your bait and go with colors that are going to match those. So that the blues, the silvers, the darker, black colored backs. And smaller baits, and that's what you try to do, and then shake in a bright color in there, where
and just see what might get them to go.
Yeah, you get that contrast.
All right, I got you. I don't know if I've actually seen the finesse walleye spinner, at least that size. That's what about a 2 or
yeah, that's a 2
size 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and these are some of my favorites. I love these finesse rigs.
You mentioned match the hatch shad. Shad run was a couple of months ago. They go up, they spawn, the little ones are coming down. Literally, you're going to have, I bet, hundreds of millions of smolts that are coming down. That's got to be kind of difficult. If you get too far away from that, you might not get bit. Or is it a situation where you can change that completely and go bigger and just have a different profile, or does that just kind of hamper you from getting bit?
It kind of hampers you. Walleye are very much match the feed. Match them as close as you can, and you know, they're on the feed and they want that.
If you were trolling a worm harness, shad smell so pretty darn small, would you be cutting your worms in half? Would you just shorten it up a little bit, or would you run a full worm on there?
I shorten it up a little bit, you know, still a good sized crawler, but you know, just the smaller blade, the lighter vibration blade, and you know, 3/4 of a crawler, it works great.
Can you give us, without giving up the rock you're standing on, the proverbial rock, everyone, like zones of the Columbia that you might spend a little bit more time in than, say, another?
You know, so right now out of Maryhill State Park can be a decent place, but probably my favorite is headed up to Crow Butte and Boardman area. You get up there a little further east, that section of the river just holds a lot of fish. And, and there's a lot of spots to fish. There's no quote-unquote secret spot. You get out there, find a lane that has some fish in it. You know, there might be 5 boats in one lane, but then you go a different spot, there's nobody. I find once you find a spot where the fish are, if you can get on your maps and match spots that are similar, they'll be in fish in all of those.
That's a good point. Use the electronics, find something that looks similar on your graph, right, on your map or whatever the heck you want to call it, and then try to duplicate that somewhere else.
Yep.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Last question on walleye, because I want to save some time and talk to him about winter steelhead. We get a lot of questions about winter steelhead right now, and I want to try to address some of those, and I got an expert here in the studio, so we're going to spend some time with that. But before we do so, again, if you went today, you'd be pulling worm harnesses, you find the fish, kind of stick on them, stay in that depth line. Is there a reason, or maybe the best question would be timeline? If you kept on going, how long does this fishery last into the first of the year? And is there a time where you might say jigging is now going to be more effective than trolling?
Absolutely. This fishery is going to go, you know, all winter long. You know, we're going to be catching fish off and on with great fishing depending on where and when. But the trolling really starts to kind of slow down once that river really gets below 40 degrees. And those fish get lethargic, they get cold, you know, it gets that 41, 40, 39. You know, it's chilly out there, that January, February time. That's where the jigging really takes off. Those fish dump off into those deep holes, 60, 80, 90 feet.
Wow.
And jig them slow. And that's how you got to find them.
So it'd be a vertical jig, straight up and down, super slow presentation as far as how fast you're moving along the river. And I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. They bite you on the drop, so pay attention on that. It doesn't matter what species.
Exactly.
If you're twitching silvers, it's on the drop. If it's walleye with a worm on a jig, it's on the drop. So there's definitely some options out there. And again, isn't it weird, Ryan? We're already talking about Christmas gift ideas. At least it feels like it to me, but it's true. All those are excellent Christmas gift ideas for the fisher person in your life, right? So if there's somebody out there that you want to set up with maybe a different choice of fisheries, walleye is one of the funnest. And on top of that, when you are successful, easily one of my favorite fish taco meats there is walleye, unquestionably. And then, of course, just fried up with beer batter is incredible. I mean, it's one of the best table fare fish there is out there. And the smaller ones eat way, way better. You catch a big trophy, let her go. But the little guys, delicious. All right, we're gonna cut to a break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, and that's winter steelhead with Shane Magnuson from Yakima Bait. We'll be back in just a minute.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.